here is a video that will make up for us missing our last class. And it's going to be a walkthrough of GarageBand focusing on MIDI and the MIDI editor or the MIDI piano roll. And we'll do something along the lines of creating an ad for our class like we did together in Audacity. So to get started, I have already created my project folder, GarageBand Add Demo, and I'm going to go ahead and open GarageBand. Now, GarageBand here is opening to the last project or last session that I had been working on. You might recognize it. But I'm going to go to the File menu and hit New, so I can start a new empty project. And one thing in this menu here, I can remind you that you could do things like change the session tempo. You could change the key or the time signature if that's relevant to you. You can even set your audio interface if you were actually using your audio interface to record audio into GarageBand. At this point, I'm going to leave all this stuff alone, but I'm just going to change the tempo. I could just use these up arrows, change it to something else. I'll make it 132, okay? And hit choose. All right, now GarageBand's not going to let me open up a session without having at least one track in my project. So it's going to ask me, what kind of track do you want to start with here? Do you want a MIDI track, aka software instrument? By the way, that's what we're going to be focusing on. Or do you want a sort of virtual drummer? Do you want an actual audio track where you can plug in a microphone or an instrument into your audio interface? And this is also sort of an audio track, but it's designed specifically for guitar and bass and has tracks set up using effects and plugins that are dedicated to guitar and bass sounds. So in our case, we want this one, MIDI software instrument. I'm going to click that and hit create. Okay, so here we are. The project is open. It created just a sort of default virtual instrument track. One thing I'd like to mention is the on-screen keyboard that allows us to use our computer keyboard to trigger virtual instruments. We could use our computer keyboard as a MIDI controller. So to get to that, I go to the Window menu and select Show Musical Typing. And now this looks like a piano keyboard, but also you notice there's a bunch of letters. All right. Now that you have this selected, this shows you what letters on your computer keyboard can be used to trigger your virtual instruments, your software instruments. So I could just click on this. Right now, the software instrument that's selected is the classic electric piano, and I could actually push this, and here's, I can use my mouse if I'd like, but I also can use, you can't see this, but I'm actually pushing the A key on my computer keyboard. Right, and here's the S key, here's the D key, here's the F key. Nice thing about using the computer keyboard is I could hit multiple keys at the same time. You know, if I were trying to play right, the black keys are triggered by the letters that are selected here. Okay. And there's a few other things you can explore. I think some of the important ones are the Z and the X to change the octave of your instrument. If I hit Z, it can bring it down. If I hit X, it can bring the octave back up, or it can go even higher. Right? C2 I think is sort of like the default where it just opens up to. Okay, so that's good to know if I was going to actually use my computer keyboard as a MIDI controller to enter sounds into my project. And we may yet come back to that. I'm going to close this for right now. And I'm going to remind us of a couple things here. So way to the right is a button to get to our loop browser, which lets us trigger like pre-made either audio clips or MIDI information, MIDI clips that we can bring into our project. Over here, there is a button that lets us toggle on sort of the virtual instruments library that are available to us. So like these are all the sort of virtual instrument sounds: fingerstyle bass, picked bass, stinger bass. If I want to back up to the main menu, I hit down here. Now here's the bigger categories: guitar, acoustic guitar, hard rock. You can see things changing when I change the instrument here. You can see also, you can see this track is changing because I'm selecting an instrument for that track. Okay, so at this point it doesn't matter. I'm just going to go back to my piano and choose Steinway Grand Piano, and we'll just leave it there for now. I'm going to close the virtual instrument library, and I'm going to open up the loop library. We're going to get to work building a session that has some background music that we will mix with that voiceover that we made for the ad a while back. So as it stands, you can see there's many things to choose from in this loop library. And I want to point to a couple things here that will help you sort through these many options. One thing right off the bat is if you click over here, right next to where it says name, you see sort of like a little square that has 3 different colors. Each of the colors represent the different types of loops. Blue represents audio clip loops. Green represents MIDI loops. And this sort of yellowish color represents the virtual drummer loops. So for our purposes here in this demo, I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to shut off everything but the MIDI loops. So now you'll notice everything in this menu over here is just the green. The green looks like musical notes. These are all MIDI loops now. I mean, I could just as easily also include audio loops, or I could shut off everything but the drummer loops, or whatever I want to do. But in this case, I want just the MIDI loops, okay? So remember, that's one go-to. You can filter out which type of loops you're seeing using this button right here. Okay, now the other kinds of ways you can filter out loops is you have a keyword search bar here. You can type in anything you want, and it will narrow down the loops to whatever your keywords are. A lot of these loops are tagged with multiple words, so you might stumble across something you're looking for just by typing in the right word or the right combination of words. Also, you can filter by instrument, music type, genre, or other kind of descriptors, mood and style and things like that. So let's see, to get started, I'm going to now filter the instrument, and I'm going to filter to beats, okay? So now my options are narrowed down to things that have the word beat attached to them, or the name beat might actually be in the title, but it also might be sort of like a tag. Oh yeah, see, I left on the, see how when I scroll down, we could see the drummer loops, and that's because over here, I didn't remember to toggle off the drummer loops. All right, so there we go. Oops, sorry. So if I want to preview any of these loops that I see now while it's filtered, I can just click, and I get a little preview down here, what the waveform looks like. I could shut off the preview by clicking the speaker icon. I can turn the volume down or up of the preview. Right. All right, so that's cool. I'm going to shut that off right now. Now everything in this list is associated with the word beat. Let's see, what else? Hip hop. I'm going to go to the keyword search bar here and type in hip hop. All right, let's see. Which one do I want here? Yeah, there we go. That's what I want. Hip hop deep jam beat. All right, so that sounds good to me for what I'm looking to do here. I'm going to now drag this into my project, and I just kind of dragged it into this sort of work area. I didn't drop it on top of the Steinway Grand Piano. If I had, actually, this clip would trigger the sound of the piano. I dropped it in the space below, so it sort of built its own track, which is, let's see, hip hop remix, okay, using this virtual instrument setting. All right, so now I have this. There's what it sounds like in my track. Now I hear a click because my metronome is toggled on. I'm going to shut that stuff off because once the beat's in there, I can hear the beat. And now I'm realizing that my tempo is much faster than I really want here. This doesn't have quite the hip-hop feel I'm looking for. I'm going to click on this, maybe double-click, it turns blue. I could type in, I don't know, 72 or something. That might be more what I'm feeling here. Let's see. Nah, it's too slow. So I'm going to go 92. That's the kind of groove I'm looking for. All right, nice. So I have that. And by default, actually, hold on. If I go back to the loop browser, oops, that's the notepad. If I go back to the loop browser, notice it told me how many, the hip hop deep jam beat, it told me how many beats it takes up, and it says 8. So 8 clicks here ends up being 2 measures. And I actually want this to be a lot longer than that. So I'm going to just, for now, I'm going to make it 8 measures long. But just by bringing my cursor to the top end of it, and I get this icon that looks like sort of a loop, like an arrow that's curved. And if I were to drag either left or right here, I could shrink the amount of loops or lessen the amount of loops, or I can extend the amount of loops. In this case, I want it to loop, I guess, 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so that's a start. I have a beat going. And now I want to add, what do I want to add to it? I want to add some bass sounds because I want this to be something that's kind of mixed together. And let's see, to filter out that, I'm going to clear the filters I have so far by hitting this X. Make sure there's nothing written in this search field, and make sure this X is here. And by instrument, I'm going to click on bass and just see if this gets me to where I want. Where is bass? Bass right here. Okay, cool. And I wonder if now if I use this hip hop R&B filter, let's see what I get. All right, so you see how it's narrowing down my options because I have bass filtered and hip hop R&B filtered here. Let me see what's in here. Classic funky synth. All right. That's funky. How about, let's see. Oh yeah. This is what I want. Yeah, that sounds good. And I could even though this is previewing right now, if I hit play and I click over here, I should be able to hear, without even dragging it in my project, I can hear how the preview is sort of fitting with what's already in my project. So that's helpful. All right, I decided I like that. I'm going to now just click on it and just drag it into its own space. That's good. And I'm going to make it long enough to match the length of the other thing. Let's listen to them both together. Now I like it. That's good. All right, great. And one more thing. Another layer that's kind of got more sustain to it. I want it to be like string-ish, or like maybe since it's kind of funk now, it's kind of like a hip hop beat with like funky synth. So let's add some like horns. So let's see. Let me clear out my filters. Make sure there's nothing in the search field here. Let's see. What do I want? I'm going to go to descriptors this time, see what this does here. I click on ensemble, and I don't want it to be too in your face because remember this is music in the background for a voiceover. So I'm going to say dark. Maybe that'll give me some options. Let's see. Okay, no, I don't want it to be. I'm going to also use the search word horn or horns maybe, because now I'm thinking I want it to be kind of like a brass thing. So I got, what do I got here? I got descriptors, ensemble and dark selected, and then I typed in horns, and let's see what we got. What's this? Ooh, that's cool. Yeah, that's nice. Ooh, Oh man, I'm going to drag this in. It's going to have, I like those hits. Those stabs are cool. It's going to have a whole different feel and context. I'm going to actually hit play so we can hear the two together. So let me click this on. Yeah. Oh wait, you know, one thing I could show you how to do here. Let's say I was just kind of previewing things and I just wanted it to keep going. Right up here where the numbers are in this ruler, this is called a ruler, and the numbers we see here are measure numbers. If I click over in this area, a loop bar will come on. I could also click this icon right here, which will also toggle the loop bar on and off. And I could drag the length of this loop bar in either direction. In this case, I just want to drag it to the length of what I already have in here. So now when I hit play, right, it's just going to keep looping this. And if I go and click on this to hear the preview, let's see what it sounds like. Yeah. All right, so then we got that. Now I know I like this. I'm going to drag it into its own track and bring it all the way over and give it a quick listen. All right, so there's a couple things about that I want to fix. One is that some of the MIDI performance information that is in the original loop didn't really transfer over when I dragged it into the session, and that's kind of unfortunate. One thing I could tell is that this seemed a little more aggressive, a little more punchy. Right, and the volume increases, and this seems a little more subdued, and it has to do with volume, but it also has to do with this concept in MIDI called velocity, which basically is MIDI information saying how hard a note should be played. And you know, some MIDI controllers, like a MIDI keyboard, have what they call touch sensitivity. So if you hit a key really hard, it records a higher velocity. If you hit a key really soft, it records a lower velocity. But you also could program in velocity. So in this case, what I think I need to do is I need to just sort of raise the velocity of these notes, because for some reason it didn't transfer exactly like the preview. So to do that, I need to get into the MIDI editor. And I can get to the MIDI editor a couple ways. I could double click the title of this clip and the MIDI editor will open up down here, or I can hit this little pencil icon up here and it will open the MIDI editor. I'll just double click this. And now here is the MIDI editor. You might even call it a piano roll, which I think GarageBand calls it that, because you could see that these notes that we're hearing are sort of lined up to their corresponding notes or keys on an actual piano keyboard, which could be helpful, especially if you understand how the piano keyboard works. In this case, that's not super important to what we need to do. Actually, I just want to adjust the velocity, in a way, the volume of these notes. And to do that, I have to toggle on something over here called automation. So I'm going to click on this little button that says show hide automation, or I can hit the letter A on the keyboard. Either way, it will do the trick. Now I see another little lane here, another little window where I can select from different kinds of things that can be automated. In this case, I want what is listed here, note velocity, right? So I want to bring these up, but actually I see an issue right off the bat. I think some of these are already all the way to maximum. If I click on one, I can see how that says velocity 127. That's actually the highest velocity that you can have, as opposed to like over here, something says 54, right? That's kind of on the medium side. So actually what I have to do to kind of bring these up a little bit is I got to kind of, oops, not that at all. I have to just select maybe just these last few notes. And let's see, do I really just want those, or which ones do I want? I'll just get these last few. All right, and I'm going to just bring these guys down a little bit first. because if I don't, I'm not going to be able to raise them all. So now I brought the ones that were the highest down. Now I'm going to just drag over everything. Got everything selected, and I'm going to just bring them all up. And now listen to the difference in the sound of this. All right, that's much better. I think also, here's another thing I want to edit. I think these notes right here, which correspond to those and those, I think they're so short that they're not coming through. They kind of did in the preview, but there was just something different about the way that one's set with volume and velocity and stuff. But to fix that, I'm just going to select those 3 notes only, but down here in the MIDI editor. And then I'm just going to drag them over a little bit so they're just a little longer so we can actually hear them. Let's see what that sounds like now. Actually, you know what? And I also believe that the velocity of those are not loud enough on top of it. Let's try it. I just selected just the ones that are, the velocity for the ones that are just selected. Okay, that's not too bad, but now I think I made them slightly too long, so I'm going to bring them back a little bit, and let's see what it sounds like now. Okay, that's very good. Now, I actually don't want these last 2 hits. I think that these last 2 stabs here, I think, get in the way of the drums and the bass. Let's listen again. Not that they get in the way, but I think I want to hear that space there because the bass kind of has a little bit of space there too. So I could do this in a few different ways. I mean, I could literally go to the bottom of the clip here. You remember, this is like a loop extender, right? So if I drag this, it's going to literally loop the clip, repeat it. I can loop it as many times as I want. But this over here is another tool. When I'm at the bottom here, it's like more like a trim thing. So I could stretch out the clip. Of course, there's no MIDI information there to see. Or I could shrink it. Okay? So I could say maybe I want to just shrink this clip down to right before those. Let me just zoom in a little bit. Right before those 2 last hits. Okay, now those 2 last hits won't be there. All right, that could work if I did it that way. Now, if I wanted this to repeat, well, I just zoomed in. What I'll have to do is hold down Option, click, and then drag over to where the other clips are repeating. So this will start at the beginning of where everything else started, but it just will have that empty space. So this is one way to solve this problem that I'm trying to solve. All right, that solves it. No problem there. But I'm going to also show you another way to do it, because this ultimately down the road, if I was going to repeat this over and over again, would probably be a little harder to navigate around. So let me show you another way. So let me just undo all that. Undo, undo, undo. Okay, so now I'm back. I have those 2 stabs. Another thing I could do is just leave this clip at its length, which matches up to these other things here. But I could just literally go to those particular notes in the MIDI editor. If I'm done with my automation, I could just shut that off so I can see more of the MIDI editor. But I can literally select those and just hit delete. Now those are gone, and this is the same length. And now if I were to use a loop tool here, I could just literally loop it, and I didn't have to do any cutting or pasting or option drag thing. So now it should work just fine. And that's fine, and my loop up here is still on. That's why it repeated back to the beginning. All right, this is looking good. If I don't want to see my piano roll anymore, I could just click here. The piano roll goes away. If I wanted to now try to blend these tracks and get like a balance I'm looking for, well, I have these volume controls for the individual tracks. So let me just hit play and just adjust this a little bit. Nice. All right, that works. And if I wanted to get under the hood here and mess with the individual tracks and their sounds, the virtual instruments that are being played, if I want to adjust the settings of them, I can click on any of these, and in the bottom, I can get some controls for that instrument. If I click on the orchestral French horn, I have some controls. And I can mess with these and get some different sounds. I can also click on the EQ, and I can mess with the EQ of this track if I decided it needs to be brighter, right? Or if I thought maybe there's too much bass or something, I could adjust the actual different frequency areas just by toggling on these little dots and adjusting areas. Okay, in this case, that sounds pretty fine to me. One thing you could always do is when you click on track, you can see what some of the effects are. You can decide that you want maybe more reverb. This one already has a lot of reverb, so I'm not going to put that on. Maybe I'll turn up the echo a little bit. Yeah, just a little bit. All right, that's fine. And I could do that to any of these things. You know, I could double click and see what kind of sounds I can mess with. I can mess with these controls. I can turn on the reverb. Let's actually add a little reverb to this bass. That sounds good. And I could, you know, try other controls. The cutoff usually controls like the frequency range. Yeah, and this adds a little nasaliness to it. Right? And I could just play with that. All right, now that I did those adjustments, I'm going to bring the volume of it down a little bit. That sounds fine to me, all right? And I can just get in here and I can really adjust different things. I play with the EQ, I can play with the settings, I can get like under the hood and really get into these plugins and change minute details about the settings if I really wanted, or I could just kind of leave them as is, right? Okay, so the thing that I hadn't been doing, which I really should have, and you should always be doing this, is I haven't saved this yet. So every single thing I added to this, every single change I made, I should have went to save. I should first save as, okay, and name this project. So this is GarageBand add demo. I'm going to say session. GarageBand add session. I'm going to put it in my GarageBand add demo project folder, which is on my desktop. So I'll make sure I'm clicking on that, and you can see there's something in there, which I'm going to show you in a second. Okay, so now I saved this thing, and I should have did that way in the beginning, and I should have been saving it frequently as I was working. But at least nothing crashed, and now it's saved inside that project folder. Now, I want to add this voiceover to this music that we made, and I'm going to balance them together. Since it's already in my project folder, I can just literally just drag it into here, and that will work, because when you click on this to open your GarageBand session, it's going to look for this voiceover in this project folder. So as long as everything in this project folder stays in it, it's always going to point to this file that's here in the folder. It's never going to get separated from this .band file, which is this GarageBand file right here. So I can literally just drag this voiceover into my project. Got to make sure it goes to its own space, because it's going to be creating an audio clip. Notice it's blue and it's not green, because these are MIDI tracks and this is an audio track. Now let's take a quick listen and see what kind of balance we get right off the bat here. In Audio Production 1, students will learn the basic techniques and technologies used in creative audio production, both for media and music. Emphasis is on design and practical production skills used in recording audio, mixing, processing, and editing sound. Students will create different types of projects focusing on the fundamentals of audio. Okay, well, my loop's still on. It didn't quite go to the end. Let me just kind of click somewhere so we can see what happens. Projects focusing on the fundamentals of audio for various applications. All right, so obviously we can see that the music stops, the voice keeps going, and a second ago my loop was still toggled on, but when I want that loop off, I can either click there or I can click here to toggle it on and off. All right, so now we're pretty sure that we're going to need our music a lot longer, well, a little longer than what we have. So I can literally just kind of drag these guys out to the end here. And, you know, chances are we're probably going to want the music to go a little bit further. You know, just so there's a little music after all the talking. That's cool. And now, speaking of automation, I'm going to just play with the volumes of things a little bit. So I'm going to toggle on my automation. I'm just going to hit the A button. And now my individual tracks have sort of, this is like automation mode. All I did was hit the A button on the keyboard to toggle automation on and off. Hitting A, the letter A. So when it's on, you'll see like a menu on each track. And by default, when it opens up, it will say volume, but you could actually click on it and choose other things, panning, reverb, echo, other things. But in this case, we're going to just stay with volume. And what I'm going to do is, slightly after the voice starts, I'm going to put a little mark, and I'm going to do it on all the tracks. Right? So I have to click on the track, and then the volume level gets shown, and then I can click on that yellow line anywhere to put a keyframe point. All right, so let's see. I'm going to put another point on each of them. So right here, right here, right here. So now, if I were to click once in this area, I can just sort of bring that up a little bit. Just a little. Bring this one up a little. Bring this one up a little. So now when this talking starts, the music will get lower. Although I might have just made the beginning music a little too loud. I'll have to watch my master meter and make sure things aren't maxing out. Let me close this loop browser because we don't need it at the moment. And I want the music to duck down when the speaking starts. So let's just see what it's doing here. In Audio Production 1, students will learn the basic techniques and technologies used in creative... Yeah, it's not too bad. Let me just duck the music down just a little bit more. Just a tad. Let's see what that sounds like. In Audio Production 1, students will learn the basic techniques and technologies used in creative audio production, both for media and music. Emphasis is on design and practical production skills used in recording audio, mixing, processing, and editing sound. Students will create different types of projects focusing on the fundamentals of audio for various applications. Students may choose to specialize in audio for media, audio for music, or both. Oops, I wanted to see how this ending could work here. Let me start a little bit back. For media, audio for music, or both. Oops. Let me go back a little bit further. Fundamentals of audio for various applications. Students may choose to specialize in audio for media, audio for music, or both. You know, I'm going to just kind of let this loop start a little bit. And what I'm going to do is now just click just as the vocals or the voiceover is just ending. I'll put a point in the music. And then I'm just going to put a point over here and just drag the volume out. And you know, actually, I have another idea. Right, just also as an ending, I'm going to put another bit in there. I'm going to let the music get louder a little bit first. Just to say, okay, the talking's over. Listen to the music for a second as it fades away. So let's see what this sounds like in total. In Audio Production 1, students will learn the basic techniques and actually, I think that the fade out is a little abrupt, so I'm going to just kind of smooth out the fade out a little bit. Listen again. In Audio Production 1, students will learn the basic techniques and technologies used in creative audio production, both for media and music. Emphasis is on design and practical production skills used in recording audio, mixing, processing, and editing sound. Students will create different types of projects focusing on the fundamentals of audio for various applications. Students may choose to specialize in audio for media, audio for music, or both. Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm just gonna kind of work a little bit more on the how aggressive, or how quickly this. Sorry, zoomed in too much here. Let's go over here. I'm gonna just work on this a little bit. I'd like this to sort of fade out a little more gently as the vocals are coming in. And otherwise, I think it's pretty good for a demo here. In Audio Production 1, students will learn the basic techniques. Not bad. That's pretty good. Let me click on this. There's one more thing I might want to experiment with. The compressor. If I compress this voice even more, I can experiment with this easy control here. If I just toggle on the compressor and I just turn it up as the voice is going, it might make the voice even more upfront and more evened out. Or it might be too much. Let's just see. In Audio Production 1, students will learn the basic techniques and technologies used in creative audio production, both for media and music. Emphasis is on design and practical production skills used. All right, that's pretty good. The compressor helps a little bit, kind of keep the voiceover really clear up front. The voiceover track still has some pops, some plosives and stuff that are not ideal. But we're not going to get into fixing those in this particular video. This is more about just using GarageBand to do something along these lines, and particularly getting into using the built-in loops, which is really helpful if you just want to make some music and you don't have access to a bunch of musicians. You're not necessarily a songwriter or a composer, but there's plenty of things you can drag in, edit to your liking, and there you got music that you can use for any of your projects. That's what those loops are for. All right, well, I hope you found this helpful, and ask me any questions about it, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care. Bye.